Hey, hi, hello, and welcome back to Em Reads Books. I'm Em, and I read books. And that's my intro now. What I am trying to do for the last sort of 90 days of the year, so the last 90 days of 2020, is I have picked 10 books off of my TBR, although some of them aren't officially on my TBR, I just know that I'm going to read them because I want to. And it's my goal by the end of 2020 to finish these 10 books. And so basically, I know that I'm going to read other books because that's just how it goes, right? Like right now I'm reading a book that's not even on this list. So, oops. But I'm going to tell you about those sort of 10 books and I want to see, what yours would be. So I think I might be calling it like my TBR 10 or something. Ooh. But yeah. So some of these books have been on there for a while. Others have been on there for like 5 seconds. Maybe I added them like yesterday. But they're on my TBR. And to be real, my TBR only has 64 books on it currently. I'm trying to stay in the double digits. If I ever get down to the single digits, that's when I start to sort of like troll around Goodreads looking for things. But being on Bookstagram, my TBR very rarely runneth over. Yeah. So the first book on my TBR is one that I've wanted to read for so long. Like this has been on my TBR A, since I made a Goodreads, but B, about at least 2 years. And it is Embrace Your Weird by Felicia Day. And so this book is sort of meant to teach you sort of how to be fearless, literally embrace your weird, sort of honor what makes you different, and just empower you, I think. And I don't really know that much about it, but I'm really excited to read it. I think it's going to be different than those self-help books, because this isn't trying to change you in any way. It's just trying to sort of help you realize what makes you you. And I think that that's just going to be such a cool book to read. Next on my list is Middle Game by Seanan McGuire. I know that this is sort of one of those October spooky books that people are really liking. Honestly, I'm reading it because A, the characters are named Roger and Dodger, which is just like, come on. But also because it features Dodger, one of the twins, who loves math. And honestly, as a math PhD student, I love reading about math in books. Especially just because I like it to be an authentic representation. I know that An Abundance of Catherine's was a great sort of example of this. Zen Diagram, not so much, even though it was really cute. But that's sort of, I think, the main reason why I'm reading this book. Also because I've heard it's super good, but, whatever. The third book on my list is 10 Arrows of Iron by Sam Sykes. This is his second book in the Grave of Empires series, and it's going to follow Sal the Cacophony after the events of the first book, which were just like, oh. The first book is Seven Blades in Black, I believe, and basically it's just following Sal and her quest for revenge, and I don't really want to know much more than that. I like just going into a book blind sometimes. And I know that it's going to be full of wit and humor, and it's going to be a fun ride. And honestly, that's something that I look for in a book. Something that's just fun. It doesn't always have to be dark and murdery and stuff like that, although I do read a lot of dark and murdery books. This is just like a fun fantasy. And I'm here for it. A lot of the books on this list are fantasy novels, and I mean, I do love fantasy novels, but I find myself sometimes passing over them because they're a little long, and, sometimes I don't feel like I have time for them, but I have time to read 6 300-page books, so, this month I'm prioritizing the books that I really want to read, even if they might be a little longer. Next is The Gilded Wolves by Roshani Chokshi. I've heard from so many people that this is bait like Six of Crows, and in sort of the booktube bookstagram world, that is one of the most polarizing statements ever. So personally, I loved Six of Crows. I loved Crooked Kingdom. I thought they were great. And so honestly, I'm here for a heist novel, right? Or a series even. One of my favorite fantasy series, Rogues of the Republic, recommended to me by my friend Dan. A lot of these books are on my list because of Dan. He has good taste and he gives me good taste by proxy. But ultimately deep down, it's a heist with the screw on it, right? Where ultimately, as we all know, that our characters are gonna get screwed over. But, that's part of the reason why we read it. We want to figure out what's going to happen, how are they going to get out of this. So the Gilded Wolves sounds a lot sort of like Ocean's 11 style, where you're gathering all of your crew to go on this heist. For him specifically, I think Severin is his name, he is trying to get his inheritance. Or, well, I guess here really he's not stealing his inheritance, but he's earning it, right? This is sort of like a, it's sort of like a Robin Hood situation where it's like it's a thief and it's a heist, but you're rooting for them the whole time. I don't know. I'm just really, really excited. And I've heard that the sequel to this has made a lot of people cry. Next up is, to no one's surprise, if you know how big of a Schwablin I am, it's The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. So this has been all over BookTube. It comes out on October 6th, and I will probably be reading it on October 6th. I bought it, which for me, who's just like a library goblin, that should mean a lot. So this follows Addie, who made a deal with the devil to live forever, but she'll be forgotten by everyone she meets. And so this is great for a while. But I feel like, being forgotten by everyone kind of sucks. So when one day she meets someone who remembers her, everything is gonna change. And that's all I know. And that's all I want to know. I just want to go in blind. I really like going into books blind. I understand that it can be an issue with trigger warnings and things like that, but I find that more often than not, it sort of grows organically when you don't have any expectations coming into the book. And I feel like it's hard to be let down when you don't have those expectations. Next on my list is The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. So she wrote the Naturals series, which is about a sort of a crack team of teenagers who track down serial killers, which is totally up my alley. I loved it. So when I found out that she was writing another book, I just snatched it up immediately. So this follows Avery, who is left basically the will of Tobias Hawthorne, a billionaire who she's never met. She doesn't know him. But the one catch is that she has to go to Texas and play a game, in essence. And so I feel like this is going to be really similar to the Westing game, which we read in school, where everyone is sort of trying to win this inheritance, and they are sort of, it's focusing around a lot of riddles and challenges, and I think it's just going to be such a fun read, and I'm really excited for it. Next, to no one's surprise, is another fantasy, and this one specifically is Jade City by Fonda Lee. And so I should provide a little bit of context for this. So my boyfriend Gil, he is wonderful and I love him, and one of our first sort of unofficial dates was we went to the theater. We went to the movies, and we saw The Godfather Part 1. It was one of those things where they show an old movie and they charge you money for it, but we watched The Godfather Part 1. And so this is sort of a Godfather-esque fantasy mafia novel, and then it's all sort of circling around this sort of magic system where everything is powered by jade. And I think it's just going to be such an original read. I love crime novels, I love mysteries, I love fantasies, I love every book. Well, let's be real, like, I love to read. But I think that this is just going to be such a new sort of take on the standard like mafia novel. And I just keep saying this, and it's true, because I'm excited. I'm excited to read this book. And I've heard so many good things. I know that, I believe that Reagan from Peruse Project has read this book. She is the reason why this is on my TBR, let's be real. But I can't wait to get this book from my library. Okay, real talk. I love Percy Jackson. I do. I feel no shame. I like the books. I love Uncle Rick. And The Tower of Nero comes out on October 6th. So now, what's gonna happen is that I'm gonna have to decide whether I'm gonna read Addie LaRue or Tower of Nero first. So that'll be fun. But this is the 5th book in the Trials of Apollo series. This is the 15th book in the sort of Heroes of Olympus Percy Jackson overall, and this is the last book that's gonna be in this universe, to our knowledge. And so I'm so excited. We're like, will Apollo become a god again? What's going on with Meg? Like, are we gonna get to see Nico and Will kiss? Hopefully. And I think it's gonna be the perfect ending. The Last Olympian, which was the 5th book in the first series, was just so good. It wrapped everything up, and there were so many twists and turns and character growth. And then the 5th book, Blood of Olympus, in the sort of 2nd series, Leah Valdez, my baby, and just everything there. It's just everything. I love it when everything wraps up so neatly, and it's like it was planned, because it was. And so I have the same high hopes for the Tower of Nero. I do think that this last series has felt a little weird, but it is giving us closure as we go into sort of the adult lives of all of the demigods from before. And that's what I want. You can tell that this is going to be the end. Alright, so the second to last book that is on my sort of be-all, end-all TBR is The Kingdom of Copper by S.A. Chakrabarty. And so this is the sequel to The City of Brass, which is one of the most immersive fantasies that I have read in a very long while. And I don't want to spoil anything about the first book, but a lot of stuff happened, and we're going to be seeing consequences. So I'm really excited to see sort of what's going to happen for Nari, who is one of the 2 protagonists. And then there's also Ali. I'm a little less excited to see what happens to him, but, you know, I think that he's going to have a really good arc in this. And honestly, I know that she, S.A. Chakrabarty, is going to be writing another series, in the Daevabad world, but another entirely different one about pirates, and whew, I'm here for that too. And the last book that is on my be-all, end-all TBR is To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini. And I'm nervous for this book because it's over 800 pages, and I feel like the last book that I read that was over 800 pages, well, okay, that was Crescent City, but the last book that I read that was over 800 pages that I didn't really like was Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chomsky, or Stephen Chbosky, one of those. But I felt like he could have cut about 200 of those pages. So we're gonna sort of see what happens here for this book. I did read Aragon and Eldest back in the day. I think I was like 10. And I liked them, but I know that editing is not his strongest suit, and by editing I specifically mean cutting stuff out. But it's also just completely different. This is more sort of like sci-fi, which I don't read a lot, but when I do, I love it. And I think that it's just gonna be beautiful. So, yeah. Okay. And so that was my TBR. My be-all, end-all TBR. I'm going to read these books, we think, before the end of 2020. So in the comments, let me know what's on your be-all, end-all. Are any of them the same? Have you read any of these books? Did you like them? Did you hate them? Did you just kind of about them? Let me know. And, as always, keep reading.